Hi, I'm Amina Wasuma, and I'm here to talk about my novella For the Love of Blood, Episode 12, Finder of Lost Love. Now, we left off with Amber leaving the hotel with Blood. He's taking her to breakfast. So they leave the hotel, and she gets into his car, and he drives, and she said, "Well, where are we going?" He said, "Well, I have a surprise for you. You'll see when we get there." So as they drive, he's driving 90 miles an hour, not a cop on the road. And she's wondering, well, maybe he's taking me to see his boss. Finally, I get to meet him. And they drive to this secluded area, nothing but beach. And there's not a soul on it. And that's when she realizes, oh, he's not taking me to see his boss. Why is he bringing me here to this secluded place? And I have my camera. She has a camera around her neck. And so Cortez can hear everything she's saying. But in an emergency, if, he decided to kill her or she doesn't know what's going to happen, they wouldn't be able to get there in time. So she's all alone. So Blood says, wait here, And he gets out of the car and she's thinking to herself, oh my God, he knows what I did last night. That I'm the one who was at Tito's garage and stole the cocaine. She's thinking this in her head, she's not sure. But she doesn't want to act on impulse because she's not sure. So she's terrified sitting there. And so she's looking through the rearview mirror and he's pulling up the trunk. And she's thinking, oh my God, what is he pulling out? Is he going to take a gun out, a hatchet, whatever? And so she's just sitting there terrified. And so he closes the trunk and he comes around and he says, boo! And she jumps. He said, I scared you, didn't I? She said, yeah. She said, well, I thought you needed a little shaking up. Your life is so organized and you got everything together. I wanted to surprise you. She said, well, what's the surprise? He said, wait a minute. I forgot something in the trunk. And she says, well, I'll get it. What is it? He said, a blanket. She said, I'll get it. I said, no, I'll get it. So he goes and he gets the trunk. Now he has, in his hand, he has a basket. So he gets the blanket and he has a basket and the basket is full of food. And so he tells her, I got a basket full of food and I got the blanket and I thought we'd have breakfast on the beach. She said, well, it's almost lunch. He said, well, okay, lunch. And he said, I made collard greens and fried chicken and potato salad. And so she's sweating, and he says, are you okay? She says, yeah, I'm just like a little hot, But she's sweating because she's stressed, she's stressing at her imagination, what she's assuming the worst. So he says, it's kind of cool, We get down to the beach, it'll be cool. I got lemonade, She said, well, I didn't know you could cook. I thought you could only make spaghetti. He said, well, I've learned a lot since I've been down here. I know how to cook, I know how to shop. I've learned so much. I told you I'm a changed man. So he says, let's go. He said, well, where are we going? He said, we're going down to the beach and find a spot and sit down and have lunch. So she said, okay. So now she's looking all around and there's not a soul in sight. And she's saying, oh my God, if I scream, nobody will hear me. If I, you know, run, there's nowhere to run because I don't have a car. His car is the only car here. So they go down to the beach, and he lays the blanket out. He takes the food out, you know. He tells her, take off your shoes, you know. And she's like, no, you know, 'cause she's got like these espadrille sandals on. And this is like the 70s. And she's got these little espadrilles, cute, you know, black and white cloth sandals. And she's like, oh no, I don't want to take my shoes off because, you know, I can't stand the sand between my toes. And she's thinking, well, if I got to run, I want to make sure I have my shoes on. And when I get on the road, I don't want to be running down the road barefoot. And that hot sun burning my feet, you know, because the pavement gets hot. And, you know, it'll burn her bare feet. So she, oh no, I'll keep my shoes on. He said, why are you so uptight? You know, babe, I got you. You know, relax. And she said, well, you know, I'm kind of like a finder of lost love here. You know, I didn't think I would find you, and now I have. He said, well, didn't you always want to be alone with me? Just me and you? You know, no other women, no other guys, just us on an island alone. Well, we're here. There's nobody for miles away. If you screamed, nobody would hear you. And she's like thinking, yeah, I thought that. I thought those thoughts already. And so she's thinking in the back of her mind, how am I going to get out of this? You know, he could kill me right here. I know Cortez is listening, but, you know, I can't talk into the camera. I mean, there's hundreds of beaches in Colombia. You know, how would he know which one I was at? You know? She's thinking. So he says, relax. You look all tight. Have some lemonade. Have some food. You know, you only live once. You know, live it to the fullest. Forget your troubles and cares and just focus on me. That's what he tells her. So she said, yeah, I always wanted to be alone with you on a beach somewhere. You read my mind. But I thought that would never happen. He said, well, you see, dreams do come true, baby. It's happening. So they eat the food, and, you know, she eats. And it's not her cup of tea anymore, because, you know, she's on a vegan diet, and she can't eat all this fattening food, but she takes a little bit and does her best. You know, she doesn't want to upset him. So he tells her, you know, we're sort of alike. You know, we want too much too soon, and when we don't get it, you know, we're hurt. He said, yes, the tower told me I would never find love, or no one would ever love me. And she said, well, he said, she put a curse on me. So Amber said, well, I don't believe in curses. You know, it's up to you what you want to do with your life. If you want to change it, you can. If you want to keep it the same way, you can. He said, well, me and you have been through a whole lot together. You know, we've been through a lot. He said, yeah. I never thought I would see you again. You know, and I never thought that I would ever be on a beach alone with you. Because I wanted that so bad when we were back in Harlem, and it just seemed like it was a dream that was never going to come true. He said, well, baby, it's true now. And I said, okay. So after they eat, he says, well, come on, uh, take some pictures of me. And he, you know, gets close to the shoreline and she takes pictures, of him. Now, he's got to be the center of attention, and he is. There's no one else is on the beach but him and her. And he's in front of the camera, and he's just smiling and posing, and she's taking all these shots. And so after she finishes with the shots, he says, well, come on. I'll take you back to your hotel. And so she says, well, when am I going to meet your boss? He said, oh, don't worry about him. When the time is right, you'll meet him. And so he takes her back to the hotel. And he doesn't come in. She thinks, oh, he's going to come in, make love to her. And he doesn't. He kisses her on the cheek and drops her off. And she goes upstairs to the hotel room. And she contacts Cortez. And she tells him, oh, Blood just took me to the beach, a secluded place. I'm like a woman in a box. I have to wait until he calls again. I tried asking about his boss, and he refused to tell me. So I just have to wait. Over and out. So she thinks, and she's in her hotel room, and she's thinking, now what is he going to do? He hasn't made a move on me since we made love, and that's not like Blood. He was the kind of guy that would be on her all the time. So he's not, he's being a real gentleman. He's not coming, at night, and, he's calling, and he wants me to be at his beck and call, but he's not making love to me. He's not after it. And she's trying to figure out his next move, and she can't figure it out. And this is what's got her kind of like, not stressed out, but wondering, like, what is he going to do next? What is he going to do next? And she says, well, I thought today he was going to kill me. I thought he could have killed me at the beach and no one would have ever known, and buried my body and no one would have ever known where I was. And if they did, they wouldn't have said anything. So she waits. She goes to sleep. Next morning, the phone rings. It's Blood. Meet me downstairs in 10 minutes. And she said, well, make it 20, And so she comes downstairs, and he said, well, we're going to breakfast. And she says, okay. So they go to the cantina. He walks her down the street to the cantina. There's a big purple door. He's all dressed, in a pinstripe suit. And, she has on a purple pantsuit. And they go in. And when they get in, it is soul food week breakfast. You got the soul music playing. And the girls are dancing. They're all dressed in 1960s, 70s, with the go-go boots and the mini skirts. And they're dancing up a storm. And she's like, wow, this is 10 o'clock in the morning. Now, these girls are all prostitutes, and they're dancing with older men who are in the drug trade. They work for Banderos. And so she says, wow, this is 10 o'clock in the morning. And there's a waitress on roller skates, and they sit at the table, and she rolls in with a big plate of pancakes, grits, and chicken, fried chicken, livers, and toast, and bacon, and eggs. And she puts it on the table. And Anne was like, I want to order something. Then he said, well, you either eat this or you don't. This is on the menu for this week. And every week we have a different theme. Next week will be jazz, and then the following week will be rock. So every week they have a different musical theme. And this week is soul food breakfast. So they got Barry White playing, she eats. And she doesn't eat it all. She's on her diet, so she eats a little bit. And Blood eats his breakfast, and then he eats the rest of hers. And so he says, come on, let's dance. So they get up and they dance. And now everybody else that's dancing moves back because he has to be the center of attention, And they give Amber and Blood the floor. And they just dance, dance, dance. Then he tells her, well, take my picture. She has the camera around her neck, So she takes his picture and, he's posing and dancing. He's the center of attention. Everybody's clapping, for him and cheering, feeding his ego. He's the king, or the prince. So when they get finished dancing, he says, well, go sit at the table and wait for me, So she sits down at the table, and he walks over to the bar, and there is Hugo. And Hugo is a drug smuggler from Miami. So he has a suitcase full of money for Blood. Blood tells the bartender to give him the suitcase behind the bar, which is filled with cocaine. So they make the trade there. Amber's watching the whole thing. And she's talking into the camera, like she's pretending to be singing. I can't get enough of your love, baby, blah, 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 because Barry White's record is playing. Oh, yeah, I can't get enough of your blood, your love, baby. And she's trying to talk to Cortez in the camera saying a drug deal is going down right in front of my face. I'm at the cantina. There's a guy, I don't know where he's from, but he just traded a suitcase full of money. I'm sure it's money and Blood just gave him the drugs. So Hugo leaves the club, and Blood walks over and sits down. He has the suitcase. He walks over and he sits down beside her. He said, yeah, that was Hugo from Miami. He said, I'm just going to wait a few minutes and then we're going to leave. She said, well, where are we going? He said, well, it's a surprise. I'll tell you when we get there. She said, well, you're just full of surprises. But anyway, Hugo leaves the club, and Miguel and another agent is sitting in the car watching Hugo. As he gets into his car, he has another smuggler in the car with him. They drive off. So Miguel follows them. And they drive to a secluded road because they're going to the airport to leave Colombia. And so the road is blocked off with DEA agents. So Hugo can't pass. And he can't turn around because Miguel jumps out with his partner. So Miguel says, get out of the car. And Hugo gets out of the car, and his partner gets out on the other side. And so Miguel said, you're under arrest. And he said, for what? He said, for drugs. I know you got drugs in that suitcase. Now. And so he says, well, you got to get a search warrant. You got to get this, got to get... And so he hits Miguel. They fight. And Miguel overpowers him, and handcuffs him, and looks into the suitcase, grabs the suitcase out of the car, just opens it. He can see the Coke there. He doesn't have to taste it. So Miguel and his partner put Hugo and his partner in the police van. They have a DEA van, and they put them in, take them away. And Miguel takes the drugs. Well, he's probably taking the drugs back to Cortez as evidence. So they clear the road. So now back at the cantina, Blood and Amber are sitting there, and Blood is just watching the girls dance, you know, and they shaking their booty and whatnot, and he's up there eyeing them, and Amber's like, look at him. You know, he hasn't really changed. He's got his eyes on those girls, and he's not looking her way, you know, and so she's getting kind of pissed, you know, that he's not giving her the attention. So finally he says, well, let's go. And so she doesn't want to seem jealous, like, you know, oh, now you ready to go. You didn't see all you can see. No, now you ready to go. But she didn't say anything. She just, you know, okay. So they leave and get in the car, and he drives her on the road. Now, they go the same way as Hugo. They're on the same road, but the cops are gone, you know, so the road is clear. So he's driving, you know, so she's wondering, well, are you going to take me to see your boss? And he said, I got a surprise for you, you know. Now he drives her to this secluded waterfall. You know, it's beautiful, secluded waterfall. And he says, I want you to take my picture. So she says, okay. And you brought me all the way out here for me to take your picture? He said, yeah. This is one of my favorite places, you know. And that's one of the things she likes about Blood, is that he has an eye for beauty. You know, he likes beautiful surroundings, and he likes to look beautiful. You know, he likes beautiful things. And so she gets out of the car with the camera, and they get out, and he poses, and she takes pictures. So he says, well, did you think about what I told you? You know, what I asked you? She said, well, what was that? He said, about you staying in Colombia. And he said, have you thought about it? And so she said, well, yeah, I thought about it. I think I am going to stay. And it seemed like a light bulb just went off with him. It seemed like that's what he's been waiting for her to say all along. He runs over and grabs her and swings her around and gives her a passionate kiss. Now, he hasn't kissed her passionately since they made love. It's like, oh, you've been waiting for me to make this commitment. You know, I'm going to stay. That means I'm committed. So he just, well, come on, let's go. I got to drop this money off to, you know, my boss. And so she says, well, you going to take me? He said, well, I'll take you. You can drive with me. He said, after I drop the money off, we'll go to your hotel and pack. She said, pack? He said, yeah, you going to come live with me. He said, if you're going to stay, we got to get your clothes and get everything and move you in with me. And so as they drive to a secluded, you know, place in the Andes Mountains. And there's a gate that's covered with leaves, and there's a camera. And Blood said, this is where my boss is. He says, you wait here. She said, well, aren't you going to tell him about me? You know, don't you want me to go in and meet? No, this is business. I got to take care of business first. And, you know, once we take care of business, and then, you know, I'll talk to him about you. And so she says, okay. So he goes to the door, because it's covered with leaves, and he pulls like the leaves back, and there's a code box. So Amber has the camera, on in the lens on long range. So she has the camera where the camera is pointing at the box so she can see his code that he punches in. And so the gate opens and he goes in, and she's sitting there. And she's got the camera, taking pictures and everything. It's automatically taking pictures. And so she's saying to herself, I bet not talk into the camera because I don't know who's watching me, So she sits there and, she takes her compact and powders her nose. And so meanwhile inside, Blood gives Banderos the money. And Banderos takes out his money and gives Blood $100,000. He leaves that in the suitcase for him. So then he tells Blood, something happened to Hugo. He never got on the plane. So Blood says, what? He said, yeah. He said, I think the DEA busted him. So now I need you to contact the client in Miami and let him know to contact the client in Australia that the drugs will be there. Hugo got arrested. I don't know if he got arrested or he's killed, but we just tell him he got held up, and they will get the shipment tomorrow, and we'll make special arrangements. So Blood says, oh, okay. So how did the DEA know that Hugo was going to be there? And Banderos was like, I don't know. Just like somebody raided Tito's. And I don't know who it is. But I still have Johnson. And I'm going to torture him until he tells me. What the DEA is up to. So far, they have interrupted 3 of my operations, and I'm not happy about it. So, Blood takes the money in the suitcase. He says, well, I'm going to leave now. I got to go into town and take care of some business. She says, okay. So I'll be back later. So he takes the suitcase and he leaves. He comes back out. He gets in the car with Amber. And so Amber says, well, did you tell him about, me? And he says, no, I didn't tell him about you because he was in a bad mood. And I got to wait for the right time to tell him. But we're going to go to your hotel and we're going to pack your things. And then we're going to go to the bank and I'm going to deposit this money. So Amber is thinking, she's like, he says, well, where do you live? He says, I live here. I live on the other side of the mansion. So she said, you live here? He said, yeah, I live with my boss. She said, well, you didn't tell me that. He said, well, I wanted to know if you were going to stay here. If you were going to stay, I'm telling you. Now that you say you're going to stay. So I didn't think it was a need to tell you where I lived, before. And so she's thinking, oh, wow, if he lives with Banderos, once I get behind this fortress, behind the fortress's gates, no one will ever see me again. Because she knows Banderos' reputation. And every agent that's ever been sent in has never come out. And she says, well, once Blood moves me in, no one will ever see me again. And Blood didn't even say, are we going to tell your father? we'll write a note to the agency and let them know that you're down here and you're going to stay. We'll just send a note, to everybody and let them know that you decided to stay. And he didn't mention any of that. And so she knew right then and there that this is the end of life as she once knew it. So stay tuned for episode 13, Confessions of the Loved One.